Hi guys, I just wanted to share with you my super easy no knead sourdough bread recipe. This is a fab recipe if you like sourdough but you don't want to go through the hassle, or you just don't have the time to maintain a sourdough starter, which can be quite a lot of work with feeding it and keeping it at the right temperature and all that entails. This is a great way to achieve a sourdough without all that, because the fermentation process happens during your rise. So what that means is it's quite a long rise. This dough needs about 12 to 18 hours to rise, but it's completely worth it, trust me. It's also a no knead recipe, so if you don't have a dough hook on your mixer, or you just don't want to go through the hassle of kneading a bread dough to get that gluten structure, this is fab, because you're basically mixing your ingredients and then leaving it to do its thing. And after your 12 to 18 hours, you're going to have a really well developed dough with a really good tangy sourdough taste to it. So I'm starting out here with about 400 grams of flour. I'm just using a strong white bread flour today. You can use really any flour that you normally use to make your bread. You can use wholemeal, anything like that, but I'm just going simply with a strong white bread flour today. So 400 grams is what I'm starting with, and that's enough for a good sized loaf. I make one maybe every 2 days. On top of that, I'm going to add about 8 grams of salt. Seems like quite a lot, but it's really what you need to give it a bit of flavour. So tare my scales again, back to 0. Just to start off the fermentation process and to get the yeast going, I'm using a commercial dried yeast. This is the one I like. I'm going to leave links for everything down below for you. So about 3 grams of yeast. It's normally what I put in. So flour, salt, yeast, and then just give your dry ingredients a good stir, just to make sure they're all combined. Easy peasy. And then to that, I add about half a pint of lukewarm water. And you do want your water warm, not hot, but warm, because you want to encourage your yeast to start developing here. You want to make it nice and warm and comfortable and get it breeding and reproducing. It seems like a lot of water. This is a really, really wet bread recipe. You're going to be looking at it thinking that something's wrong. It's far too wet, it's far too sloppy, but that is exactly what we want to get our yeast fermenting. You don't want to overmix this recipe at all. Combine your ingredients and then leave it to do its thing. It would be my advice. Now, like I said, you want this really, really wet. So if you get this water in and it's not really, really wet, I'd advise adding a little bit more water. Just a tablespoon at a time. You don't want to overdo it. So I'm going to get a little bit more water for this because it seems just a tad dry. Again, keep the water warm. So that's my flour all combined with my water. Just wanted to let you have a look at this. Like I said, it's an extremely wet bread recipe. You're going to think it's unmanageable, but trust me, it's this is exactly how you want it to be at this point. So at this point, all you really want to do is cover it up. I'm just going to use a bit of beeswax wrap. I'll leave a link for this below as well. This is really handy for stuff like this. And then you're going to want to find somewhere warm for it. Personally, I leave it in my conservatory during the day. The sunlight in there keeps it really warm. In the evening, I sometimes move it through and put it near the hearth, because warm temperature is really the key here. You want this to be warm so it ferments, so the yeast develops, and that's how you're going to get that great gluten structure. But you know, find somewhere warm for it. Maybe it's just in your kitchen, maybe it's near your fire, maybe it's an airing cupboard, anywhere that works for you. And I'd leave it for 12 to 18 hours, 12 being the minimum, 18 being better, but you can check it. and see how it looks. So I'm going to go and pop this away in the conservatory, and then I'll come back tomorrow and we'll have a little look at it. So our dough's been rising for just over 18 hours. It's more than doubled in size now. It's quite difficult to see, but it's bubbly on top. So we're ready to go now. You're going to want to dust your surface really generously. This is, like I've said before, a really wet dough. So you want to make sure you've got a good coating of flour down on whatever you're working on. Plenty of flour on your hands and on any tools you're using, and scrape it down onto your surface. You're going to find it really wants to stick here. These big long strands, quite difficult to see, not the best light, but these strands coming away here, that's showing that we've got really good gluten development here. It's exactly what we want. Scrape that down onto your surface, and then we're just going to work it a little bit. Move you back a little bit so you can see better. Go plenty of flour, and I basically just work it in towards the middle and keep doing that. It'll get less sticky. You can use your hands if you want. Just use whatever's comfortable for you. You might prefer one of these little sort of scrapers if you're finding it sticking. For the best part, I just use my hands. So yeah, keep stretching, moving it in. Should be nice and light, pillowy. Keep that surface underneath it well powdered though, or it will stick. Just stretching and pulling, helping our gluten develop. This is a beautiful dough. Still slightly wet, but it's so pillowy, it's so soft. You don't need to overwork it. Like I said, this is a really simple recipe. There's not a huge amount of work involved. You can just do that till you feel happy with it. Beautifully stretchy. Really well developed gluten in this. As soon as you're happy with it, we're going to put it down for its second rise, or its proofing. I'm going to use just one of these little bread bannetons, and I've lined it. And if you don't have one of these, you can just use any bowl and line it with a cotton cloth, and then really heavily powder the cloth and work the flour right in. It's going to stop your dough sticking on here. So you want to make sure you've got loads of flour in here. Then just pop your dough in, same side up. And that's it, ready for its second rise. I'd pop this back whenever you've had it that's warm. I'm going to pop mine back in front of the fire again, and I'd leave it for probably 1 to 2 hours. You're looking for it to double in size again. I'd cover it over. Again, I'm just going to use my beeswax again. Yeah, once it's about doubled in size, then it's ready to go. I would preheat your oven about half an hour before you think it's ready. And you want to preheat your oven to pretty much as high as it goes. Gas mark 8, I know, I'm going to check the conversions for you and I'll leave them down below. And preheat about half an hour before. So my dough has been proofing for about an hour. It's risen quite well. What you're looking for is sort of to be able to put your finger in and it springs back out like that. That looks pretty good. I like to just put a little bit of flour on top. My oven has been on a high heat, preheating for the last sort of half hour-ish, and in there I've had this casserole dish. This is what I use, but any sort of heavy lidded pot will work for you. This is a really old casserole dish. It's given to me by my granny. I think it's probably about 30 years old and it's a bit of a state, but I love it. So be careful with this, it's obviously going to be really hot after being in your oven that amount of time. This is kind of the trickiest part of the whole process, is getting this in there. With it being such a wet dough, it's quite difficult. I sort of work it away from the edges, just make sure it's not stuck. If you've had plenty of flour on there, it shouldn't stick. And then I tend to find the easiest way is just to flip it. And you're going to have a bit of a big splooge, but that's okay, that's what we want, that's what we're looking for. Bring that over so you can just have a little look. So yeah, it's a bit of a big splooge of dough. So, lid on, leave your oven up high, and this goes into the oven for half an hour. And it should be perfect, but you obviously need to have a little look. It can vary depending on your oven. Have a look, give it a little tap, see how it sims. I'm going to pop this in for half an hour and then we'll come back and have a little look and see how it's doing. So our bread's been in the oven for half an hour. Let's take it and have a little look, see how it's getting on. Do be careful with this, it's going to be incredibly hot. Got some nice splits here. I didn't cut this, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, it just depends what mood I'm in. And best way, you tap the bottom, you want a nice hollow knocking sound. If it feels too spongy, pop it back in the oven for another 5-10 minutes and then check again. But I'm kind of happy with this. I quite like my bread quite soft, not too crispy. I'd recommend popping this on a rack to cool down. My rack is in the wash, so I'm just going to pop this on, just to allow air to circulate underneath because you don't want a spongy, soggy bottom. So I'm going to leave this to cool for about an hour, then we'll come and we'll break it open, we'll have a little look inside and see how it's done. Okay, so it's been cooling for about an hour. It's pretty cool. It's nice and soft. So let's see how it looks inside. Excellent. This is exactly what you want. Nice, bubbly, chewy. It's got that real sort of sourdough smell to it.